This is a show about jewelry, why we wear it, why it matters, how it's made, and what it means. I'm Alex D, and I turn cannabis into gold. I make mind-blowing jewelry in gold, silver, and platinum from cannabis plants here in Canada for stage, screen, for people who want to rock crazy jewelry. I'm the cannabis goldsmith. One of the advantages of getting older is that you've done a lot of shit, hopefully, in your life. And you can look back on it, maybe draw on it for experience, take some of the good parts out, use it in your current day situation. I guess that's what they call wisdom. So I'm going to talk about photography today. I've shot photographs. I shot my first photograph in 1967 at Expo 67 in Montreal. The old guy that I am, I was in elementary school. I got a camera somehow, a Brownie camera. I don't know if my parents owned one even. I think they might have borrowed one to give me to take to Expo 67 on a school trip. And I took my first photograph at Expo 67 of these crazy pavilions were built for Expo 67. It was just the most magical experience for a kid, for anybody. They had monorails and computers that weren't even invented yet. It was just like crazy. But the layout of this Expo 67 was built on these artificial islands in the St. Lawrence River, where I am sort of now, but a little bit further east. And they created this park. Now, the park exists today. The pavilions don't. What used to be the U.S. pavilion still exists today, but it's just a shell. But back then, I took my first photo, and the first photo was the back of the Ontario pavilion with the dumpsters and shit. I was just so excited. I was a bit kind of afraid to go around the front and take the picture, so I sort of surreptitiously took it from the back. But anyway, it's not the best photo, but at least I know it's my first photograph. Anyway, today's show is about photography, and if you're taking pictures of your jewelry, of your pottery, of your paintings, not so much paintings. That's a whole different thing. Copy art is a whole other thing. But if you want to show your paintings in environments or in places, or you want to create a vibe around the way your products are shown on social media or on the internet or anywhere pictures are used, like on posters or anything like that, this is the podcast for you, because I'm going to talk about photography, product photography. I've spent the last 3 weeks rephotographing products and then photographing new products, getting ready to put new images on our website across our social media stuff. I am just losing interest in social media, though. It's just stupid. But I want our website to have great pictures, so that's what I do. I take the best photographs that I can take of the products we make, and I put them on our website. And I'll put a few on Instagram, too, and you can see the kind of photographs that I take. Now, you'll look at our stuff, and you'll say it's all over the place. If you look at our Instagram account, it's more together on the webpage. There's more a theme and an overall vibe about it. But the Instagram page, which is at TRIBEDOTCA, there's all kinds of different images in that. And I've done this on purpose because I'm experimenting. This is my palette. This is my experimentation thing. Because I don't give a fuck about social media, I am using it as a place to mix my colors. So what I'm doing is experimenting with different texts on images, different ways to keep things in focus and not, different ways to highlight areas in an image and demote areas in that you don't want people to really look at. But when I want to take a serious photo, it goes on the webpage, and that's where our serious photos are. Now, as I said, I've been photographing for 3 weeks in the studio. And what I do is, first off, when it came to constructing photos for our brand, for our jewelry brand, I looked at all the competition. I looked at the Cartiers, the Tiffany's, the Boucherons, all these super high-end jewelry makers, and I had a look at what they were doing on their websites. And I was shocked, absolutely shocked. They are all basically white backgrounds with products on them. Now, if you do a Chat GPT search, which I'm sure they did, or talk to some website designer that said, the white backgrounds are much more friendlier for social media. So as a result, all their sites look like Shopify sites. In fact, probably Shopify might even be running the back ends on these. A lot of these super high-end brands, I noticed, they're not even using real photographs anymore. They're using computer-generated. They're using outputs from their CAD programs, which I was shocked. These brands are, some of these luxe brands are charged 3 to 10x the amount for a ring or a bracelet or something that anyone else does, and yet they're using computer-generated images to sell the stuff on their website, and I was just shocked. And that, to me, that's laziness. That's not craft. That's not craftsmanship. That's laziness. And I think brands that do that, on the one hand, they sell being, expensive, handmade, hand-tooled, but on the other hand, they're getting computers to produce the images for them. Now, I'm not even talking about AI here, right? This is not AI. Most jewelry these days that you buy is designed by CAD software programs, these jewelry design programs, and there are all kinds of models that exist out there for these ring designs. Now, granted, these high jewelers have their own models, their own that they've developed for ring designs. So these are the rings that they're selling, but they're selling them the same way as like Pandora is selling their rings, which I thought was shocking. I mean, look, if you're claiming to be super high-end on luxe and, royalty and all that, it has to follow through. On your marketing, it has to follow through on how you present the photos of your products. What's happening here is that they're taking the CAD design program, and there's a thing you can print a sample of what it would look like if it's made. And that's what they're doing. They do a 3D rendering of the design, and then that's what they're using on their webpage. And they can show it in silver, gold, or white gold, or whatever. But it's not the ring. It's like it's an output from their design software. Now, I thought this is either lazy or why are they doing this? Just doesn't seem right to me. But the reason why they're doing it is they have so many products. They're mass market luxury, so they have so many products. They make so much of this shit that they have to. They can't manually photograph each one because it would probably put them out of business. So anyway, smaller people like us, bespoke jewelers, or people super high-end bespoke jewelers, can take the time to photograph the products, and in fact, that's what we need to do, because that's how we sell more products, is that people can see what we've made already. And it doesn't look like Pandora, or it doesn't look like a Shopify thing. So that was my thinking. I wanted a vibe around the photographs on our brand. I don't want to use white backgrounds. I want to use black. I'm such a contrarian. I will go the opposite direction if I can. So, okay, how are we going to photograph this shit against black? This is what I'm thinking. Immediately, it's like, okay, but black is rich, right? It has a richness to it. Black and gold. These are the things, the red Canadian flag color, the white Canadian flag color, the rich burgundies, the deep blues. This kind of richness is what I want to evoke in our photography, right? I don't want a white background with a fake 3D rendered ring on top of it. They're not even putting real rings on fingers anymore. If you zoom in, you see it's a 3D rendered ring on a model. I guess this is why actors are on strike, right? In Hollywood, the movie companies will get to put them forever in movies, and they'll get nothing out of it. But anyway, this whole idea of using computer generated images to sell supposedly handmade products is just. I'm shocked. I'm still shocked. Let me have a sip of coffee here. So with us, it was like, okay, I don't want to go against white. I want to go against black. I want to use really dark lighting. I want the only thing in the picture to come out is the product, our ring or our bracelet. That's where I want eyes to be on that. And as a result, if you look at our Instagram site, our site looks really weird. It's like it looks like a salad. It's like all over the place compared to these curated sites of the early Instagram days, where you get a table, you put a few things on it, have some shade, some sunlight on it, and like people's Instagram feeds used to be all this shit, right? Everything was taupe or beige or whatever. But I want black. I want our gold and our silver products to just jump right off the page. And I want to photograph it with real cameras. And I'm not doing film, although I suppose I could, but that would just be too much time involved. But I use good cameras, and I use good lighting, and I take a good, sharp picture. It's all it is. And the reason is, I don't want to do any Photoshop after. I don't. I fucking hate it. The only Photoshop I do on my pictures is to take out dust. I rarely even sharpen. I take out dust. I check the color numerically in the software to see if it's accurate to my photograph. But that's all I want to do. I don't want to take a picture and then spend 2 days trying to fix it in Photoshop. Don't do that. Take a good photograph from the beginning. Second off, third off, maybe. If you're photographing non-reflective surfaces like pottery, or even if it has a bit of glaze on it or something, if it has a bit of glaze on it, you might run into issues. But anything that is not really reflective is so much easier to photograph, like people. God, for most of my life, I photographed people. I was like fashion, shooting magazine covers, editorial covers in Tribe magazine that I used to produce, inside photography, advertising photography. I've shot for architectural magazine covers. I've done a lot of different kinds of shooting. I've shot a lot of people, none of them really reflective. Sometimes a lake or water, sea, sun off the sea, but not really dealing with reflections. When I started photographing jewelry, it's like, oh my God, it's like mirrors. How do you photograph a mirror? Because you don't want you in the picture, so you have to angle it so you're not in it. But then you get these weird reflections that make everything look stupid. So you get into these things with photographing jewelry where most of the time is spent controlling these reflections that you don't want on your pieces. Now, I'll give you some tips on how to do that. It's still going to take a lot of time if you're photographing reflective objects, because what is happening is a spectral reflection. Like if you stand in front of a mirror and you have a flashlight in your hand and you shine that flashlight into the mirror, it's going to blind you. It's going to come back and you won't be able to see any detail in that reflection. It'll just get washed out by the reflection. And this is the last thing you want when you're photographing jewelry, unless you do it on purpose. Now, why would anyone want to do that on purpose? Okay, if there's a part in your jewelry that you don't like, it might be fine to everyone else, but maybe you don't like it. Maybe you don't like a curve of it, or maybe you don't like the way something is on the piece. You can position that spectral reflection right there so that the reflection, that sparkle, is right there. So there's no detail in it. It's just light coming at you, like if you were standing in front of a mirror shining a flashlight into it. So you can control that. And that's what you need to do to take a good picture of a jewelry piece. Now, there's different ways I've tried to photograph jewelry. Some of it you can see on our Instagram page. Some of it works, some of it doesn't work. But that's not the goal of what I'm doing there. There, like I said, it's like a palette, and it allows our customers to see our pieces in IRL, in real life, by the various methods I'm using to photograph them. So they get to see, they get to feel the vibe of the pieces. They know what we're about as a jeweler in Canada. We take live cannabis plants, we cast them in precious metals and turn them into beautiful jewelry pieces, and belt buckles and bongs and cannabis seed ear studs, like leaf pendants, just sick, and leaf pendants at 18 karat gold, and we do all this crazy shit. So the photography should reflect that, right? And that's what I'm attempting. But now I've been in the studio 3 weeks shooting photos, and it's so difficult to do. For you, it's not going to be this difficult. For me, it's difficult because I make it that way. So maybe this show will be about learning something for me too. But anyway, the idea is to keep, when photographing your product, is to keep the product in the forefront of the image, even if it's in the background. And what I mean by that is, okay, think of what you want to achieve before you even take the photograph, okay? Draw it out on a piece of paper. Draw the frame of the photograph, the outside boundaries, put your product in it, draw your product in it. Draw an arrow as to where the light's going to hit it from, where the shadow's going to go. And then do that. Just set it up. You can use your phone, but I don't recommend using phones for this kind of photography, because stuff happens with phones is that you have no control. The phone has the control, or whoever programmed the software in the phone has the control over the image. You have none, even though it tells you can make it lighter or darker or whatever. Just don't bother with that shit. Get a digital camera, and if you're going to be selling expensive pieces, invest in a good digital camera, and that's what you use. Or find somebody who can do it for you. But anyway, draw it on paper. Say you have a ring you want to sell. And what makes it special? Say it has a surface texture, like our leaf rings have a surface texture. We've captured, our casting is so good, we've got down to pore level on the plant. You can actually see the pores in the leaf, right? And the leaf structure and the veins and stuff in the leaf. So you want to highlight that. I want to highlight that in a picture. So how are you going to do that? Yeah, you start with one light. You put the object on a piece of either white, if you're going to do it like everyone else, or black like us. And then you take photos and you move the light around the object in different ways until you get something you like. And you'll find as you do this that reflections will be coming back at the camera, these spectral reflections. And you'll find that you can move them around the object by moving the light. That way, in the photograph itself, they'll move around. And experiment and play with it. And this is all it is. This is really all it is to photograph jewelry or pottery or 3D objects for studio work. Now, a light. Light is really important. If you're photographing something that isn't important for color, light is not that, the type of light you use is not that critical. When people often ask me, why don't you use daylight? Why don't you go outside and do this? Well, because the sun is constantly changing, and the light coming from it, the color is constantly changing. If a cloud passes across it, the temperature of the light changes. So the color, its color changes even a little bit, right? And it's constantly changing. Then you got bugs flying across, you got wind. It's just, to do a small controlled shoot, it's really difficult to do. I mean, sometimes if you're in a town and you see these movie shoots happening, you see there's like 40 trucks, there's guys with wheeled carts, There's like people with headphones on. This is just to get one shot outdoors, right? They have to control everything. Lights, they have to change the sunlight. They put these huge giant filters, gel filters, like in frames above the actors to keep the light to keep the light color the same across the shoot that they're trying, the scene they're trying to capture. So it's really hard. Oh, you don't want like 40 people in your studio, trying to capture your product. You want to do work, right? You want to go in there with an idea. I want to make this product look the best it can be, and I want to capture it technically well in good light. So if you're going to invest in any kind of photography for yourself, for your own products, I would recommend don't buy anything really expensive at first, but just practice with a digital camera that can get you a good photograph, a good, reasonably sized photograph. The prices of them are going down now. You can get 40 megapixel cameras for quite cheap. You can get good photos with these, with a good quality light, just one light, and pieces of cardboard. So I'm talking about black cardboard, white cardboard, and styrofoam. I use styrofoam. Big sheet of styrofoam, maybe an inch thick. You can like packaging material. Sometimes when Amazon or somebody ships you something, you have a piece of styrofoam in there. You can use that. I mean, as long as it's white styrofoam. Now that's how you have one light, one good quality light with a high CRI index. Now, I have they have all these like named CRI indexes and all this shit, but you have to look for a super high number. What that means is the color coming out of your light is very accurate. It's not going to change. It's stable. It's staying up. It's staying as close to sunlight or whatever as it can be over the course of the time you're going to be using it to take your photos. So look for super high CRI numbers above, I guess, 97 or whatever it is now. A good clean light. That's what I call a good clean light. So it's putting out light at your product that's not flickering, that has a nice steady color profile. There's no clouds coming in front of it. It's just light, and it's good clean light falling on your object. Now on the other side of that is a shadow, because if you hit the object on one side with light, a shadow is going to develop on the back. Now you might want that in your photograph because that can be cool sometimes. In your experimentation, you can do this kind of stuff. You can throw shadows if you want to. But sometimes you don't want the shadow to be that dark. So how do you get rid of it without putting another light in there? Well, you get a piece of white cardboard and you position it opposite the light. And you bounce some of the light back into the shadow area. And the card is not in the camera. It's not in the frame, so you can't see it, but it's bouncing light back to fill in those shadow areas. You'll notice if you're photographing jewelry, reflective objects, that white card is also being reflected in the object. And this is incredibly important for jewelry because you can use that square shape, that square reflected shape, to make your ring or bracelet more three-dimensional in a two-dimensional photograph. Now, none of this may make any sense to you. It's hard to talk about visual stuff in audio, but what I recommend is get a decent digital camera, get a black card, a white card, maybe even a gray card, kind of a mid-tone. Okay, that's your gear. You need a good solid tripod to hold your camera. Get a good solid tripod. Get something, there's an Italian company called Manfrotto. They make the gear that pros use usually in grip and tripod stuff. You can get one of their tripods. It's more expensive, but you can always sell it for good money afterwards if you have to. It's something you will use all the time. So get a good tripod. Mount your camera on the tripod, point it at a table, put your product on something that is not going to take away from the product. I just get a piece of plywood and stain it black, and I photograph on that, or a piece of black leather. But I'm shooting dark against dark backgrounds. You might want to shoot against a different kind of background. So experiment. Then you can paint your backgrounds. You can spray paint them. You can wax them. Sometimes you want something that's under your product, under your pottery or jewelry. You want it to have a bit of a reflection, but not much. You don't want a spectral, one of these hot flashlight in the mirror reflections coming off the back, off whatever your product is resting on. You want it softened. So what I'll do sometimes is I'll rub it down with like wax, paste wax, and buff it off, and it gives the surface of the object, the plywood board or whatever, just a hint of luster. So it gives more dimensionality to the photograph that you're taking. The most important thing with photographs is you can get all tied up in gear, and I have been my whole life. But I always think I could do better with more different gear. It's not the case. You'll find. I know pros are like this. Pros are like this. They'll keep defaulting to the same lens over and over again because either it's magical. They think it helps them. They won't tell you this, but this is what they think. It has some sort of magical effect on the photos that they take, that this lens gives them the best photos. Or it's just a lens that seems to do all the right things for the task. And the lens I use a lens they don't even make. First off, here's what I use. I use a Nikon D850 to shoot my jewelry products. It shoots pretty big images, but the thing about it is it's a DSLR. It shoots good, clean 4K video. It shoots good, clean images. The image sensor is quite large, but the color is good too. And it has lots of different controls. You can shoot video, which is important for marketing these days. You can shoot single still frames. You can run a monitor off it. You can plug a monitor into it so you can see on a bigger screen what's going on in the image, which is important for shooting small things, right? Like jewelry. Not so important in larger objects, but small things, important. You can zoom right in, look at it on a big monitor, make sure your focus is tighter, and then photograph it. But I use a D850, and the lens I use mostly for my products is, strangely, everyone's like, macro lenses. I've bought macro lenses, and I do use them, but the lens I use the most is a 28 to 70 2.8 Nikon lens. It's the heaviest zoom. It's so heavy. It's a short zoom, but it's very, very heavy, and it's built like a tank. And I find this lens produces incredibly good, sharp images. And because this camera takes a big 45 megapixel image, I can zoom in afterwards in cropping to get very close to what I'm doing, and cut all the other external stuff off the outside and get a reasonably big blow up. I don't need a macro lens really all the time. There are some issues with macro lenses I've found, that especially with photographing jewelry. They'll work better for paintings on a 2D. For example, a macro lens mounted above a painting on a desk. You put your painting flat, you photograph it, boop, you light it evenly, and you get a nice, crisp reproduction of the painting that's even all across. The focus is, if it's in focus, all the focus is even across its surface. You get a nice copy, like a copy effect. You just copy the art. And for paintings, I guess that must be really important for painters. They want to show what their painting looks like. I notice with some joy that painters are, a couple of painters I follow on Instagram are putting their paintings in living rooms so you can see what they look like on a wall. Now that's cool. I think that's a neat way to sell paintings with photographs. But with me, with what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a whole vibe of like my products. I envision my products being worn at night mostly, like on stage or at clubs or at parties or like at award shows or, this is why the black background, it's a vibe thing for me. Also, I think it makes the jewelry look better too, in my opinion, our jewelry. And it separates it from the other 3D rendered shit that's online. In my search for different jewelers, I went to all these like maisons and looked at see what they're doing. Maison, incidentally, is French for pretentious. Looked at the different jewelry sites, and I'll put a few in the show notes that I think are exceptional for photography. There are brands that should be worrying more about applying more time, I think, and effort to the way their products are the images are captured for social media. They're not even doing that anymore. The vibe I want to evoke is a kind of an after dark vibe, and I want our products to like shine in that kind of, but not too much, in that kind of environment. Now, if you're a potter, maybe you want to have an outdoor vibe, and you can bring that into a studio. Now, a studio doesn't have to be anything. A studio can be a table in your living room. The only thing you need to worry about is making sure no light gets to what you're doing that you can't control. So in my studio, all the windows are blocked. Now you can use curtains. In my studio, they are physically boarded over. I don't want light in there to come in and impact the way the photographs are happening. And you'll find in video studios or, it's all dark. It's all lit with lighting. And that way, all the lighting can be controlled. I'm still in the thick of photographing. And this is a longer podcast than I wanted to make today. I've just been rambling about the photography. I've been shooting for 3 weeks. I haven't put really any of the photos up. About one photo up on Instagram of the new gold leaf ring, 18 karat gold leaf ring. But I'm still shooting a whole bunch of new images are going to the website. And I've shot most of them now. I'm just trying some more experimentation. I'm also shooting video too, which is a new experience. Maybe I'll do another podcast on shooting video for products after. I'm still learning all this. But one thing I can say for sure about photographs, having shot them for professionally and as a kid at Expo 67, is that you have to experiment and do different shit with your photographs. If you're taking pictures of products that you really care about and the clients you really care about, you need to spend more time taking real photos of these products. Photos. Don't spend too much money on gear at first. All you really need is one light, 3 reflector cards, black, gray, and white, a camera with a lens that you can get pretty close to the object. The lens I use isn't even meant for taking close-up stuff, but this is why I'm like, this is photography, right? You can do different things. Try it, and you might find something that works for you. In your studio, you're going to need different kinds of fabrics and little bits of wood and stuff if you're shooting small objects like pottery or jewelry. You're going to need stuff to experiment with to use as backgrounds. The reflector cards, the light, and the camera are the most important things, and the lens, of course. And then you can work from there. I don't know who to recommend really in this podcast, but I will put some in the show notes if you're a jeweler looking for ways to showcase your jewelry. I'll give you some tips, some links to follow in the show notes. The real secret is not to make the production so big that it takes away from the product itself. Keep your mind on the product. You can have all kinds of models and fashion shoots and all this kind of shit, but you know what? It's about the products. It's not, you don't want the models taking away from the product, or the companies that can afford to pay these superstars to sell their products. That is being built into the cost of the product, just so you know. Don't make it too complicated. Like, I get into this trap all the time. I'll be like, I need another light. Oh, I need a different lens. Oh, I need this, that, the other thing. No. You don't need any of that shit. Just start taking stuff away from the picture. Take stuff out of the frame. Use less gear. Use less lighting. Keep stripping stuff out. That's what I found. The more you put in, the more pieces there are you have to control to get a good, clean photograph. That's all you want, is something to sell the object. Try something different with your own photography. Experiment. Have fun. Don't make your site look like everyone else's. You're supposed to be creative. Show it. So if you're using 3D rendering, computer-generated images to sell your handmade jewelry, well, good for you. But my head isn't there. I like to photograph our stuff in real life and to make the photos as interesting and as different as possible. I think it's a good plan. Try it yourself. Try some different stuff. If you're a bespoke jeweler or an artist who wants to showcase their work, have fun and experiment and create the best images you can to show your pieces the way you want them to look. The Cannabis Goldsmith is produced by Tribe Communications, Inc. in the Thousand Islands area of Ontario, Canada. You can see what we do at tribe.ca. Send us an email, alexd@cannabisgoldsmith.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Cannabis Goldsmith.